Hi, I'm Erik Voss, and Avengers Infinity War's ending has left me with one big enduring question. If Thanos' goal was to save and improve lives across an overpopulated universe, would snapping half of them out of existence really help? Like, don't get me wrong, while driving the congested freeways of Los Angeles, I've snapped the fingerprints off these freaking things. But how exactly would life for us change in that doomsday scenario? Well, I've burrowed down in a rabbit hole for every other Infinity War related question. I have a problem, I know. So let's frighten ourselves with extrapolation and ask, what if Thanos' snap really happened? Well, the Marvel films have given us a little taste of the impact. There's of course the initial shock of seeing nearby folks suddenly fading away into dust, not to mention the mess. Hopefully half of all vacuums didn't disappear too. There's also some danger on the streets, car accidents, helicopters falling out of the sky, the eeriness of an emergency broadcast signal blaring over televisions, with the world overtaken by giant ants that play drums and wear headphones for no reason. Now, in Marvel's Infinity Gauntlet comics that this movie's based on, Thanos' snap is just as devastating. Cap is shaken upon seeing Hawkeye and Cersei fade before his eyes, and he later realizes that the Fantastic Four, Black Panther, Daredevil, and some of the X-Men have disappeared too. Spider-Man witnesses a crowd of people in Times Square suddenly vanish, including a baby out of a stroller. An airplane crash lands in the middle of the city, and across the galaxy, the Kree and the Skrull empires blame each other for the calamity and declare open war. Though really, an even bigger disaster occurs later, when Thanos throws a temper tantrum over death not smiling at him, and he releases a shockwave that destroys the West Coast and the East Coast and knocks Earth out of its orbit away from the sun. Yeah, comics! But let's get back to real life. How would our lives on Earth change if half of us vanished? Well, similar events have occurred in human history. In the 14th century, the pandemic known as the Black Death killed hundreds of millions of people around the globe and reduced the population of Europe by around 50% in just 4 years. This was a bacterial infection that could cause anyone to suddenly drop dead. The entire social order collapsed. In 1348, Italian historian Agnolo di Turra de Grasso wrote this about it. Father abandoned child, wife husband, one brother another. For this illness seemed to strike through the breath and sight, and so they died, and none could be found to bury the dead for money or friendship. Sounds like a party. Some historians say the Black Death made people more religious. Others say that society became more nihilistic and indulgent, drinking their lives away and having lots and lots of sex. But it did result in wealth redistribution, as the lack of abundant cheap labor now allowed a new middle class to capitalize on new technologies to farm and ship stuff. And I should point out that within just a few centuries, Earth was right back to its old population level. And now, 7 centuries later, our population is 16 times what it was then. So with all this in mind, let's look at the 5 major ways Earth in 2018 would be affected if half of us turned into Dryerland. First, let's talk security. Would Earth really be less dangerous with half of us suddenly gone? Sure, I guess you could argue that a random culling of 50% would theoretically mean half as many terrorist murders and killer bears, but also half as many soldiers, cops, paramedics, nurses, doctors, firefighters, bear hunters, people who save our asses. A pacifist might argue that half as many soldiers pointing weapons at each other on Earth could lead to less overall conflict. Maybe. Like, do you know people? Look, even if rival nations don't get spooked like the Kree and the Skrull did, the Dusted still left their weapons behind, and now those weapons have fewer trained personnel maintaining them. Any idiot could just grab them and bang, 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 bang. Look, I don't want to scare you, but we need people at their various posts around this planet just to make sure everything doesn't blow up. Like, I shudder to imagine the wrong crew people on a nuclear submarine vanishing. Oops, boom. Really, folks, we're just like one spilled coffee away from nuclear annihilation. And really, a lot of our general day-to-day safety depends on people behind the scenes doing their jobs and not suddenly checking out. Like, if the wrong air traffic controller leaves his post, you're gonna see all kind of oops booms. I saw Breaking Bad season 2. So you can sleep easy, knowing that at every moment, thousands of projectiles are zooming past us, ready to slam into us if someone blinks for too long. And Thanos just weaponized half of them. Okay, next let's look at the economic impact. As I mentioned before, one upside of the Black Death was greater material wealth for the survivors. And that was Thanos' main argument after all. Half as many people mean twice as many resources for the rest of us. A grateful universe. Except not really, Thanos. The Infinity Gauntlet comics point out that animals die too. Pets, cats, cattle. People gotta eat. And when half as many people have half as many pets to eat, you haven't changed much. And Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige clarified that half of all life has vanished. So not just humans and animals, plants, fungi, algae. There's a fifth kingdom, bacteria. Any source of food has also been cut in half. Thanks, Thanos, even the vegans are still hungry, and now you left us on a planet with more barren dirt. And it's not just the food itself. The whole infrastructure that supplies your resources to you would also be greatly disrupted. People who work in agriculture, manufacturing, shipping, construction, food service, retail, buying anything, food, clothes, hygiene products. It's gonna get a lot harder. Meanwhile, the black market's gonna boom. Craigslist is gonna get cutthroat. Just imagine this scenario. Farmer Gus is pissed because half his workers, crops, and chickens went poof. And the bare shipments he does have are delayed because half the truck drivers dusted in the middle of their shipments. And that doesn't matter anyway because your favorite cook, Martha at Waffle House, is gone too. So no more breakfast, ever. But it doesn't matter because you can't leave your house. The roads are jammed with abandoned cars and trucks. Metro tunnels are flooded because, hey, Thanos laid off half the people who operate the pumps to keep that from happening. And your electricity is cut off because the power plants have half as many people maintaining them, and all the nuclear ones are about to go oops boom anyway. It's just gonna be pretty tough to continue your cushy life watching nerdy YouTube videos when your power and Wi-Fi keep dropping out, and you're starving and freezing to death, and roving bands are looting your house. But please stay subscribed. But it can't be all bad, right? As Willy Wonka taught us, sometimes murdering off surplus humans leads to the strongest surviving and thriving. And I should point out that many historians credit the Black Death for leading eventually to a number of technological advances, like more efficient plows and better ships, medical advances, and the printing press. So would Thanos' snap make our lives cooler? In the realm of technology, it's hard to gauge the potential impact because remember, we'd also be saying half of all MIT students and NASA engineers, half of all Rick Sanchez's would be dusted too. Fewer people overall means fewer geniuses knocking their heads together and inventing better ShamWows. But if we apply the history of the Black Death, I think we could expect some technological upside. Perhaps surviving humans would be more invested in researching space travel and interplanetary defense from cosmic threats like Thanos in the future. You could argue that society might be more concerned with staying in touch with their loved ones in case another random rapture event occurs. This could make real-time communication technology more in demand. Like, I feel like within a few years, our Apple Watches will constantly alert our parents where we are and what our pulse is, what we're looking at. Privacy is gone. It'll kind of be like that Archangel episode on Black Mirror. Actually, you know, I think it'll be like every episode of Black Mirror. But while we're looking at upsides, let's talk about the environment. Because human consumption of natural resources is another thing that a 50% culling might help with. Would Thanos' snaps solve our ecological problems? There have been a number of studies and thought experiments on what Earth would look like without any human impact. And it's all depressingly wholesome. Way fewer carbon emissions, the air becomes more breathable, the rainforest thrives, overly hunted species like whales would repopulate. But remember, Thanos killed half of all life. So that means half the rainforest is gone. Half as many plants to suck in our CO2 and exhale oxygen for us to breathe. Those endangered whales with already too few available mates, probably extinct. That one remaining white rhino is gonna be even thirstier. Overall, crumbling abandoned infrastructure will affect animal and plant life in all kinds of good and bad ways. But I think we can say that society pumping the brakes in general would be good for the environment. That is, until that ghost ship Russian nuclear submarine drifts into Greenland. Oops, boom! North Pole melted. So now Santa's dead too. But genuinely, how would culture be affected by something like this? Think about it, a random death lottery of half of everyone you know, it'd be very traumatic. And that grief is just so unfathomable, it would manifest in all kinds of weird, unpredictable forms. As we saw during the Black Death, society was pulled in really two directions. A spiritual extreme, in which people embraced the afterlife and God, they started going to church a lot more. And a nihilistic extreme, where hedonists took whatever time they had left and lived it up. The novel and HBO series The Leftovers explored a very similar rapture-style event, and that only 2% of people vanished, not 50%. But it's still a shock. And similarly, that fictional society seemed torn between spiritual forces and nihilistic cult movements. Either way, our current thought leaders would lose a lot of influence. Actually, the ending of Infinity War showed us one world leader, King T'Challa of Wakanda, dusting, and across the globe, government leaders disappearing. That's a big mess. But really, I just don't see how any future society would have faith in any authority system that let them down like that. Like, if you're a normal guy on the street, the Avengers blew it. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if many in our kind of screwed up society end up turning to Thanos. to worship him in a weird mix of gratitude, but really good old-fashioned Old Testament fear. Please don't snap again. Meanwhile, knowing what I know about human nature from reading Reddit, there's probably gonna be an opposing ideology to whatever Thanos extreme. Some kind of cult figure who preaches instead, screw it, let the rest of the world burn too. Honestly, probably someone similar to the Joker from The Dark Knight. And that's probably as fun as it's gonna get, folks, because with all the chaos of this Mad Max-style dark age that we're now in, there's probably not gonna be too much time for any other leisure activities, like sports or the arts or entertainment. Actually, in The Leftovers, Shaq, an NFL quarterback, and Gary Busey are among the departures. Meanwhile, in the Infinity Gauntlet comics, Alf is still on TV, so kind of a mixed bag. One interesting side effect that we might see is a new genre of entertainment inspired by the dusting. Like the Black Death actually led to a period of medieval art, literature, and music that embraced dark, gloomy themes like hell and the Grim Reaper. These guys were the OG goths. There was a rumor that the Ring Around the Rosie nursery rhyme dated back to the plague, with the lyrics a tissue, or ashes, ashes, we all fall down, depending on whatever version you learned. Those are referencing the sneezing of the infected and how they would burn the bodies to try to stop the disease. Fun! So if this channel still exists in the post-snap world, you can look forward to our breakdown of all the Easter eggs you missed in Hungry Henry 4, where Henry escapes the Thanos cult and falls in love with a pile of dust before getting oops boomed by a rogue nuclear ghost sub. It's a comedy. Now, I should also point out that all the horrors that we experience here on Earth in the aftermath of Thanos' snap are being suffered on every other planet with life that might be out there. In the Marvel Universe, there are the Kree and the Skrull empires, and they're just as sad as we are, as well as godlike cosmic entities who couldn't care less what further damage they do to the galaxy, as long as they can get back at Thanos. So really, these oops booms are just beginning. But here's my question for you guys. In this hypothetical post-apocalyptic world, who would be the leader you look to for guidance? Almighty Thanos, the surviving Avengers, those losers, that nihilistic Dark Knight Joker figure I talked about, Alf? Comment down below with your thoughts, you sheep. Now, a big thanks to Marvel Puzzle Quest for sponsoring this video. Marvel Puzzle Quest is a match 3 puzzle RPG that you can download for free on your mobile device or Steam. It features over 150 characters from the Marvel Universe, and you can create your own dream team of heroes and villains, and not just the ones from the cinematic universe either. Like I have Black Panther, but also Venom and Deadpool. Dream team! You can compete in versus tournaments as well as story events, and you can join alliances to rank up in the leaderboards and earn cool rewards. They're adding new characters constantly. Cable, Domino, and Bishop have recently joined in on the fun as the latest characters, and the Marvel Puzzle Quest team has a ton of new events and content coming for the holidays, so stay tuned to see that. And here's a special offer for new players. Just download Marvel Puzzle Quest using the link in the description below, or head over to d3go.com/newrockstars and get yourself a free Thanos cover to add to your collection. And follow New Rockstars on Twitter and Instagram @NewRockstars. And for more of my insane theories, you can follow me on Twitter and Insta @Erik Voss. And of course, subscribe to New Rockstars for more breakdowns of everything Avengers related. Thank you for watching, and oh damn, that abandoned nuclear sub keeps drifting over here. Just go up. Oh, oops.